Hey guys, this is Rev Perez, Rev 21 Films. I'm in my car waiting for my wife to come out of an event. But while I was here, I decided I said, you know what, I haven't been on for a while. Let me share some stuff with you guys. As I'm sitting here, sipping on this coffee, I decided that, I learned some new stuff. You see, a lot of people think that because of who I am and all the stuff I've learned about my Christian faith, my Catholic faith throughout the years, that people think I'm full of it, or that I think I know everything. I don't know everything. As a matter of fact, I just learned some stuff not too long ago that made me go, wow, I get it. One thing that always irked me over the years was this whole story about how Satan became Satan, right? And we've all heard it. We've all heard the story about how he was the highest of all the angels before creation, and he decided one day that, you know what, I'm so good, I'm so amazing that I kind of should be God. And he started this kind of like revolution amongst the angels, and of course, not being God, failed. And he ended up being thrown to the outer darkness, so to speak, hell, with a third of the angels who chose to go with him. And I always wondered in my head, why would you be so damn stupid to do something like that? Like, who do you think you were, like, trying to, it's like God made you to be beautiful and glorious. And, the name Lucifer, which is the name people attribute to Satan before his fall, which is in scripture, in the Old Testament, means light bearer, luminous, Lucifer. That's where it comes from. And people be like, yeah, yeah, he was the devil. Okay, why? Why? Right? So it bothered me. So I started reading into it. And I read I found out some things, a couple of sources that are purely Catholic in nature and stuff like that. I don't know if other of my Protestant brothers and sisters get this gist, but if they do, great. If not, then you want to listen to this. I don't think in any way it contradicts anything regarding Christianity or church teaching. I think all it does is kind of gives a little bit more of a clearer light as to why this happened, this rebellion in the angelic realm. And that is this: two things. One, um, first of all, St. Augustine, one of the great church fathers of the first few centuries of our faith, wrote in his book City of God a thing on the fall of the angels. But what he put it in was in the, and I think he kind of wrote this in because, I never thought of it this way. But you know what? Okay. You know how in Genesis chapter 1, God is like, he creates the light, let there be light, and then, he separates the light from the darkness, and he calls light day and darkness night. But then the sun comes a couple of days later, which kind of makes no sense, right? And people probably, where you get the light from. Well, St. Augustine argues or proposes that the light was the light of the angelic realm when God created the angels on the first day. And the separation of the light and the darkness was when the fallen angels, when the angels that rebelled against God turned away. And that became the darkness, the demons, the devil, Satan, right? All right, separated the light from the darkness. Okay. I think it's a nice analogy. I don't know how accurate that is. I mean, it's not like I was there. It's not like St. Augustine himself was there. But, I can see how that can work, especially if there was no sun present yet. And if you want to follow the Genesis narrative literally, of course, that's another discussion. Science, love science. I would love to have a talk about that actually one day. But here's the thing that I really learned that made me go, okay, okay, I see. You see, God and his omnipotence and his greatness and his awesomeness, right? When he created the angelic realm, he immediately let them in on his plan. of redemption, of salvation. You see, angels, unlike us, don't live in time. So there's no, you know how like we always are changing our minds? You know, my wife does it all the time. And, you know, it's like, hey, let's go here. Let's go eat here. And as I'm driving there, oh no, let's go eat here. And I'd be like driving, okay, fine. And I have to get a U-turn or whatever, risk getting a ticket. You know, we change our minds. Anakin turns back to the light side. He turned to the dark side. He becomes Darth Vader. And then at the end of Return of the Jedi, he chooses again. You know, our choices in this realm, in this temporal world, are exactly that, temporal. Whereas angels do not live. They do not live in the temporal realm. They live in the eternal realm, where time doesn't exist. Their choices, their decisions are fixed. They're fixed. And here's how this worked. When God let the angels in on what he was going to do, some of them didn't like it. Why? Because God said this. God said, I'm going to create another species, and I'm going to create this whole new cosmos, this whole new universe that's going to have this thing called matter. Physical realm, physical. You know, it's a different kind of material from what you guys are made of, like, you know, the angels. And in that physical realm, I'm going to create a creature after my own image and likeness. Okay? After my own image and likeness. And we see the narrative in Genesis there. Let us make human beings, our man in our own image and likeness and whatever. And then the point of that was that God was creating his own divine attribute into a created creature, a divine attribute that would not only be physical but spiritual, but the two would be eternal. Okay? The physical as well as the spiritual. And of course, that follows the reason later on about the resurrection of the body, which we believe in, that, you know, we're going to have our resurrected bodies back at the end of time, because that's going to live forever too. Okay. But when God said to the angels, not only am I going to create these human beings, but I intend on becoming one of them, becoming one with them. I'm going to unite myself to them, not only in the spiritual realm, but in the physical realm. So that this creation of mine will be elevated up into the essence of my divinity. Not that there'll be gods or anything like that, but that they will share in the same divine life of God. Which is something the angels, I think, might be short of having. But the angels are still by nature much more powerful than humans. But at that rate, no, it won't happen. There'll be physical and spiritual beings with both realms, the physical and the spiritual realm, united and in a harmonious union in which the angels will not only acknowledge and accept, but actually serve humanity the way they're serving God. Okay? So the human beings will be over and scripture talks about this. St. Paul actually mentions it in one of his letters, and I can't remember which one, where he talks about, did you know that we will rule over angels, that we will judge angels? We're going to have authority over angels. Why? Because we're going to be holding the same divine essence. We'll be sharing the same essence of God. That's called the beatific vision. That's called heaven. Okay? And by the only way that's going to happen, God chose to make it happen that way by becoming one of us, obviously in the person of Jesus Christ. God, the Son, becoming flesh and manifest. So he puts this out there to the angels, and the angels are like, okay, now remember, they're angels. They don't have an opportunity to, once they get some kind of information, their intellect, which is what they're mostly made of at this point, their intellect kind of like ignites their freedom to decide of what to do with that. And their choices are fixed, like I said earlier. So they're gonna be, they're gonna either go this way or that way, and then that's it. There's no oops, never mind, nope. There's no never mind. Here, yes, never mind. Physical, realm, temporal, physical, never mind, yes. And in eternity, no, never mind. As a matter of fact, same thing will happen to us when we die. That's why the New Testament talks about this, that there's no, I think it's in Hebrews, there's no second chance after death. One is appointed for us to die once, and then after that comes judgment. There's no second chance. That's why it's important to decide in this life now. One of those angels, the top one, that he chose to reject that offer. He chose to reject God's plan at that moment. That's where the pride in him kind of seeped in. He just didn't wake up one day and be like, you know what, I'm so much more prettier than, maybe I should be like God. He just didn't decide that one day in eternity past, because there were no such things as days in eternity past. When the angels were created, they were given this divine revelation by God of what he was going to do with the rest of creation, and a third of those angels chose to reject it. Non serviam, I will not serve, as in Milton's Paradise Lost. Lucifer said, I'm not doing this. And what happens? I will not serve. Just like Milton's Paradise Lost. Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. His pride. That was the thing that leaked in. And then who comes out of the angelic realm saying, who is like God? Who are you, Lucifer? Who do you think you are? Boom, that was the Archangel Michael. So you Latino brothers and sisters who see those pictures in your in our parents' house of Saint Michael the Archangel casting Satan down, that he's like this and he's like this with the sword. That's where that comes from. Revelation chapter 12, actually, it talks about it. How the dragon and his angels fought against Michael and his angels, and their place in heaven was no longer found. They were cast down to the earth. And that's basically what happened there. That was the fall of the angels. The Archangel Michael threw Lucifer down. Lucifer led a revolution against God. He's been doing it ever since, and he's been obviously instrumental in the fall of humanity. And God, in becoming a human being, took upon himself the sins of the world so that we can be, once again, re-entered into heaven, re-entered into that realm, so as to get back into that original plan, which was to join in God's divinity and join in his essence, which is the lifeblood of heaven, which is what our hearts crave for, which is what every human being on this earth wants. However, people will use other means, accept God, accept his providence, accept his knowledge, the knowledge he bestowed on us. There are going to be people that will rather rebel in and of themselves to reject it. They'll use other things. They'll use politics. They'll use religion even. They'll use philosophy. They'll use other methods. Atheism. Oh, that's a wowzer. So they translate it to different things. Atheism becomes free thinking. What the hell that is? And there's no freedom in that. It's funny because we can always change our minds. There was a woman named Bella Dodd who was who grew up in a Catholic family, did her sacraments and everything, but then she chose to reject all that and join the Communist Party in the 1930s. And it took a couple of decades or so, right after the Second World War, for her to finally kind of turn back to the Catholic faith and repent of all the stuff she was doing. She went to Hunter College. She actually grew up here in New York and was part of a communist union party of some sort. I'm not sure what it was called, but she was a historical figure. She died, I think, the same year I was born, or the year before, 1969, 1968, something like that. And she ended up changing her mind. She changed her mind. She decided, you know what, this is wrong. And God used Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen, God rest his soul, to kind of like bring her back to the faith so that she can, learn it. And it was great. And but she did confess to Congress, I believe, I think sometime in the 60s or in the 50s, that she herself was responsible for recruiting about 1,100 men to go, communist agents, to go into the seminaries, young men, to go into the Catholic seminaries, and to try to infiltrate the Catholic Church via the use of using communism or socialist ideologies, kind of mix it in there with the Catholic faith so as to taint it. Satan's a master at that. He's a master of taking truth and dropping enough poison in it to make it lethal. All you need is a drop of cyanide into a nice big giant bucket of Kool-Aid to knock you out. And that's what happened there. We've been suffering from the effects ever since. All the stuff that's been happening in the church lately with the scandals and the sense of apathy that I has kind of infiltrated our Catholic Church in a way that people are now leaving the church in droves. We just got some news that 7 more Catholic schools are closing down by the end of June. And that's just to add to all the other Catholic schools and churches that were closed down this past decade alone by the Archdiocese, of New York. It's just not good, man. It's not good. This means there's something bad happening here, and people don't want to see it. They think I'm crazy, that I'm just like waving. I'm not walking around with a big giant sign that says Jesus says big earthquake is coming. I'm not. That's not my style, first of all. But I've always been fascinated by this kind of stuff. I just don't want to turn a blind eye to it. Now, I've been praying to God, and I ask you to pray for me too out there, to give me more of a sense of doing this in a more charitable tone, because I've been I've been spoken to about that, and I get it. But at the same time, how when a doctor tells a patient that they have, if a doctor has to tell a patient that they have cancer, how do you, what nice way is there to say that? I mean, I'm sure there is, I'm sure there is. Trying to get the glare of the sun out. Let me see if I can do this. This might work. Yeah. I don't know. Nonetheless, all rebellions are echoes of the original rebellion of Lucifer falling from heaven. And I think the reason why I didn't go off on a tangent, talking about all this Bella Dodd stuff. My point is, she changed her mind. We all can change our minds. We can all choose to sin and turn away from God, or we can choose to not sin and turn to God. It is our choice. Once we enter eternity, those choices become fixed, and that becomes the choice between heaven and hell. We make those decisions every day. So do I. I pray to God every day I make the right choice, because I got issues. But the 3/4 that did not rebel, that stayed with God, made the right choice. But they made a choice. The demons, under Satan's rule, made a choice too. They're still angelic beings, but they made a choice too. So that's the choice. That's the description of the fall of the angels and Lucifer. And that's it. And that's all I got, guys. God bless you. And I'll see you again here on Rev 21 Films on the East Bronx Catechism, which is, I guess that's what this